It's not acceptable for India to continue financing this war by purchasing the oil from Russia. As being one of our closest friends in the world, but they don't accept our products.
Having seen a difficult period in our relationship, now seek to move ahead. Differences must not become disputes, nor competition conflict.
Welcome to GBS Deep Dive. This is Najma Minhas. Monday offered an interesting contrast. While Western leaders sat in the White House to discuss Ukraine's future, Chinese and Indian foreign ministers were sitting in New Delhi to discuss bilateral relations. The Chinese foreign minister's visit to India comes at an opportune moment when India finds itself at a high-wire geopolitical junction. It's managing the aftermath of a regional conflict with Pakistan, grappling with a trade and a massive diplomatic strain with the United States, and seeing the fallout of its attempts to strategically hedge between the global blocs. From the US side, India has been seen as cozying up to BRICS and helping Russia to fund its war in Ukraine by buying Russian oil. While BRICS members, on the other hand, are upset at what they see as India's recalcitrant role in stopping the bloc from expanding and deepening its cooperation, especially with regard to a BRICS currency that India has consistently said is not on the cards. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi's current visit to India in mid-August marks the first such senior-level visit by a Chinese foreign minister in over 3 years. It signals a thaw between the two countries after a prolonged diplomatic freeze that followed the 2020 border clashes in Galwan Valley. The relations between the two Asian countries have been on a mend since an agreement last October on patrolling their Himalayan border, which has eased that 5-year standoff that hurt bilateral trade, investment and air travel. The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to meet Chinese President Xi Jinping at the end of the month also, when he travels to China to attend the summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, a regional security bloc. And it's another bloc that Donald Trump doesn't like. It's his first visit to China in 7 years. This crucial meeting has come at a moment when there's been a belated dawning of realization in India that it cannot burn its bridges in the region by assuming that it will get full hog support from the United States in its plans for becoming a major pole in Asia. Even as recently as April this year, Indian government ministers were blaming China for so-called overcapacity and crowing it deserved what was happening to it, saying that they knew how to manage the United States.
The genesis of this entire problem goes back to the late 80s and mid 90s when China was accepted in the World Trade Organization.
The assumption was China's downfall would be their windfall, as they would become part of the China Plus One strategy, never expecting they would themselves become victim to Donald Trump's flip-flop of emotions, which has now left India scrambling and Prime Minister Modi humiliated, as his opposition reminds him of his obsequiousness when he said MAGA, make America great again, plus MEGA, make India great again, makes for a mega partnership.
MAGA plus MEGA, it becomes mega.
So briefly, what are the major points of discussions between India and China that will come up during this meeting? What did Peter Navarro, who is President Trump's trade advisor, just write that probably had Indian policymakers bent over in shock? And how has Donald Trump appended decades of bipartisan US foreign policy, and why even the global South blocs like BRICS and SCO also upset with India? The Indian External Affairs Minister Jaishankar set out the meeting with his counterpart, the Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, emphasizing that differences must not become disputes and underscoring that lasting peace on the border is critical for renewing bilateral momentum. His first visit to China in 5 years in June emphasized the importance of a permanent solution to the border issue. Border discussions are key to the improvement in bilateral relations between the two countries, which both key countries are very keen to achieve. Both countries want to reduce their troop levels and go back to resuming patrols, as was the case before 2020. And they're also in discussions to restart direct flights as well as border trade. Meanwhile, India's government think tank has proposed easing investment rules that effectively require additional scrutiny for Chinese companies. And this is another sign of a potential shift in economic engagement between the two countries. It would be a critical move by the Indian government, as in 2020, after the border clashes, the government banned not only over 200 Chinese apps, including the infamous TikTok, but also officially sidelined Huawei from its 5G rollout. That was something due to happen at the time. Something that was being encouraged by the first Trump administration at that time across the world. You might remember that the United Kingdom did the same. India also mandated that there needed to be prior government approval for all investments, both direct and indirect, from any country that shared a land border with India. This was basically done to stop Chinese investment coming into the country, especially into sensitive areas such as pharmaceuticals and telecoms. Chinese companies at that time were bringing in huge amounts of investment into the country. Deals such as the 2023 plan by China's BYD, the electric car maker, was to invest over $1 billion in an electric car joint venture, was basically shelved because of the regulation and the bureaucracy involved in this. These rules hampered Chinese investment in India, have been a significant factor which was behind the large drop in India's FDI. Chinese net foreign direct investment in India fell from over $44 billion in 2021 to just $353 million in the last financial year in India. Rare earth minerals will also be a key discussion as well, as you can imagine. They are critical for India's auto and electronics industries. India's automakers have been raising alarms over potential production halts, as we've seen across the world, because of delays in these import approvals. India, like many other Western countries, has been hit by Chinese recalcitrance on the export of these materials. So tangible progress on this area, for example, is definitely very limited. Do check out my earlier vlogs on the need for these rare earth minerals. Those of you that watch me know that I've done tons of them. Please do check them out. The Chinese FM Wang Yi will also meet the Prime Minister Narendra Modi as well, just to smooth things out in anticipation of his visit to the SCO forum in Tianjin at the end of this month, August 31st. Now, this rise in engagement with China reflects India's strategy to diversify its partnerships and to exercise its infamous or famous strategic autonomy. It's key to India's strategic rebalancing of these relationships, as well as validating its own role in the multipolar world versus the Trumpian order, where every day is a new day and you don't know which side of the bed he's about to wake up.
Donald Trump's sudden, inexplicable hostility toward India reverses policies pursued under 5 administrations, including his own previous one. If it holds, this reversal may be the biggest strategic mistake of the Trump presidency so far.
Now, relations with India for over a decade in the United States have been bipartisan. Both parties have viewed the country as a necessity to counter the rise of China in Asia. And India was to be developed as that bulwark. India went along with it willingly. It was showered with cooperation agreements to strengthen it militarily, and it was invited to be part of the Quad along with the United States, Australia, and Japan, a group specifically designed to counter China. India's transgressions in Western side were generally forgiven. It was given waivers whether it was for selling oil to Iran and later Russia, or buying the S-400 system from Russia, for which even Turkey, a fellow NATO ally, was not forgiven. It was kicked out of the US F-35 program.
Close relationship between Washington and New Delhi would be the key to preventing Chinese domination of Asia and securing America's interests in the region.
That India is now under massive pressure from the United States. And while I say United States, it's actually Donald Trump and his ilk, and his exclusively transactional America First foreign policy, which is based on what you can do for him or the United States indirectly.
From this day forward, It's going to be only America first. America first.
Now, there are two things going on here. One is he wants, first, for the United States to benefit from an economic relationship with India. And second, he wants India to stop straddling those two boats, the West versus the global South boat of BRICS or SCO. In essence, decide who is going to marry and become committed to that partner. No more polygamy. He's also upset over the estimated 700,000 illegal Indians in the country and has already made some effort to deport them, to much uproar in India. On the economics part, President Trump warned Tim Cook he wants Apple to produce iPhones in the United States, not India. He's not interested in what has become known as friendshoring, which is American manufacturers taking their plants away from China, mostly to countries that in the US eyes were acceptable, such as Vietnam or India. The tech industry's use of H-1B visas for tech workers is also coming under scrutiny, as Indians get almost 70% of the quota. Donald Trump has put to bed Prime Minister Modi's hyperbolic claims of MEGA plus MAGA makes mega. The only mega Trump wants is on-the-ground jobs and investment in the United States. And he's twisting the arms of all the other nations to deliver, whether it be billions coming in from Japan or Europe, or the trillions from the Middle East. And he wants something similar from India. Donald Trump has condemned India for being a tariff abuser, a tariff king, for having a dead economy. And of course, he can't forgive it because Indians, or the Prime Minister, have refused so far to agree with him that he helped to achieve a ceasefire between two nuclear nations, which India has time and time again refused to acknowledge and in fact has corrected him. And no doubt in his mind, India should have actually supported the case for him to get nominated for the Nobel Prize. He's repeated this claim in his very recent Fox interview after sitting down with Sean Hannity to discuss his meeting with Putin after the Alaska summit on Friday.
Take a look at India and Pakistan. They were shooting down airplanes already, and that would have been maybe nuclear. I would have said it was going to go nuclear, and I was able to get it done.
On Monday, in a hard-hitting op-ed in the Financial Times, one of the United Kingdom's most reputable papers, Peter Navarro, President Trump's trade advisor and one of the key architects behind his economic policies, wrote a scathing article on India, saying that its purchases of Russian crude were funding Moscow's war in Ukraine and had to stop. India acts as a global clearinghouse for Russian oil, converting embargoed crude into high-value exports while giving Moscow the dollars it needs. He said that if India wants to be treated as a strategic partner of the United States, it needs to start acting like one. The advisor also said that India's close ties with Russia and China made it risky to transfer cutting-edge United States military capabilities to India. It's a bizarre narrative even from a United States point of view. But even more importantly, you don't write such op-eds sitting in the White House unless you were given the go-ahead from the Secretary of State, at least at the minimum. Earlier, Peter Navarro told reporters outside the White House on August the 6th that India is the Maharaja of tariffs. Trump has threatened still more tariffs on India for its participation in the BRICS group, as well as those penal tariffs of a further 25% on India because it buys Russian oil. That brings the levy on most goods to around 50%. It's amongst the highest rate faced by any US trading partner. Now, to make matters worse, the way the Indians see it is, China, which buys far more Russian oil, is not even being hit with these tariffs yet. The Indian response, which instead of kowtowing, reasserted its right to buy that cheap oil, which no doubt would have annoyed Trump even further. The statement put out by the Foreign Office spokesperson in India said, "It is extremely unfortunate that the United States should choose to impose additional tariffs." And it went on to say, for actions that several other countries are also taking in their own national interests. And then Prime Minister Modi posted on X, which is basically two fingers up in diplomatic terms. He writes, "Had a very good and detailed conversation with my friend President Putin." He went on to say, "We also reviewed the progress in our bilateral agenda and reaffirmed our commitment to further deepen the India-Russia Special and Privileged Strategic Partnership. Now, at this point, the Indian government really has very little choice domestically. Given the nature of Indian democracy, it would not play well to be seen caving in to Trump's demands. Modi is known for playing up his chest size and for being that macho man for all his right-wing supporters out there. In addition, Indian policymakers would probably be very reluctant to upend what has been a long-standing and cordial relationship with Russia. President Trump has also been very upset at how slowly the trade negotiations between the two countries are going. He posted on Truth Social, "Remember, while India is our friend, we have over the years done relatively little business with them because their tariffs are far too high, among the highest in the world, and they have the most strenuous and obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers of any country." Now, a planned visit by US trade negotiators to New Delhi from August the 25th to August 29th has also been called off, delaying talks on a proposed trade agreement and dashing hopes of relief from those additional US tariffs on Indian goods from August the 27th. India has generally resisted United States demands to make any kind of trade concessions on agriculture, dairy, and seafood. Trump also wants them to buy much more energy. They're already buying some, but he wants them to buy much more. And he also wants them to buy many more military weapons from the United States and to stop buying them from Russia. This has left India with little choice but to improve its relations with China, as well as to be seen having a greater engagement in BRICS and SCO. But there's trouble over the horizon there as well. Of the initial BRICS members, India is the only one that has a relatively close relations with the US as compared to Brazil, South Africa, Russia, and China. On several BRICS policies and communiques, it was felt that the group could not achieve its outcome due to India's intransigence or its desire to not want to appear as being anti-Western. Two issues in particular have riled up the bloc. First, the attempt to increase the group members. India's concern here was that it would dilute the bloc's coherence, and the fear, though not expressed, was that it would allow China to get a bigger role. But it is believed by many of those sitting in the BRICS that this concern was also a deliberate way to ensure that the group does not grow bigger and thus more influential as Western countries fear, and that India, in essence, is doing their bidding. Secondly, and very importantly, there is a huge desire in BRICS members to undertake some sort of de-dollarization. And this has been expressed by Brazil and Russia on a number of occasions. India notably has ruled out de-dollarization repeatedly and is believed once again fearful of US repercussions. Instead, it's encouraged local currency trade among BRICS members, saying that's what it wants to focus on. Now, during the last 10 to 15 years, as BRICS was developing, India has been the only country that's been benefiting from direct US patronage. However, despite all this, it is now believed that Trump's tariffs, threats, and punishments are just pushing the BRICS countries closer together in the near term, in areas such as trade, investment, and even potentially currency platforms, if not currency itself. They may feel it's in their economic interest, for some time at least, in their political interest, to unite together as a group to face Donald Trump together. Brazil's President Lula da Silva, who's been hit with 50% tariffs, has gone on the offensive against what he calls Yankee imperialism. He's had calls with Putin, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and Chinese President Xi Jinping, discussing how they can boost the BRICS relationship and defend multilateralism from Trump's threats. Similarly, on SCO, while during the last meeting, India distanced itself from that formal response to the Iran-Israel war, where the group expressed serious concern and strongly condemned the Israeli strikes, which were described as a gross violation of international law and the United Nations Charter and an infringement on Iran's sovereignty. India's response was seen due to its realignment of its foreign policy towards the United States and its long-standing partnership with Israel under Prime Minister Modi's government. However, Prime Minister Modi's decision to attend the SCO summit in Tianjin is seen as his attempt to show a response to the Trump administration that India is a sovereign nation and will continue its policy of strategic autonomy and believes in multipolarity. The question is whether India will run to do as the US bidding if Trump decides to woo Modi again. Please share with me your thoughts on whether you think this will lead to a rethinking of Indian foreign policy. Thank you for giving me your time and have a great day.